What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Alex here from Team Generations, and today we're here to discuss super awesome little budget tribal deck. We are going to be talking about machining and some of the new support that it did get. This is for Megacolony in the V series. So if you're new to the V series, you know, you're playing Overdress or whatever, want to hop into this, get into it with your friends. This is like such a good value. You can put this whole deck together for about 30 bucks or so. I really don't think there's anything too expensive in here at all, and just have a blast. Like, this is tribal support, so everything kind of works with each other, flows with each other. This has like a really like set in stone kind of game plan. I think that, you know, back in the earlier days of V, it was a little tough. You know, you had to kind of mishmash things all here and there, but we really did get some really cool support, and this actually did come out in English now. This is the first time that we are getting it, so I really like this deck. I think that if you are somebody new to the game, trying to get into it, get your friends into it, want to suggest them a deck, I think this is like the perfect thing to do it. So I still play this deck routinely. I really do love Megacolony, the stun bugs, quote unquote, as I call them. So let's hop right in. I'm going to do this one a little bit different, just like a regular deck list instead of like a deck profile like I normally do. So let's hop right in. Just pressed with time, and so many decks to get through these days, but check out the content on the channel if you want to see my normal kind of profiles a little bit more in depth. But we're going to start off with machining Black Saturn over here. So this is an awesome card. Like I said, this just came to English. This was in JP previously. Let's read the skill over here. Act on Vanguard Circle once per turn, Counterblast, Soul Blast 1, and then choose 5 of your rear guards, stand them. Until the end of turn, they get an extra 5k, and this unit gets an additional 1 drive. And then choose one of your opponent's Vanguard. That unit gets drive -1 until your opponent's next turn. So looking at this card, it does a whole lot for us. Obviously, a little bit of power for us, a little extra drive check just helps your hand get a little bit bulkier, maybe cut down on some draws that you would have ran otherwise. And on top of that, just puts this like inherent pressure onto. I will say going first, the -1 drive until your opponent's next turn, that's only on that specific card. So if they re-ride, just kind of sucks. So if they're not, you know, if they're not in a position to re-ride, if you kind of know that, I feel like that's really good. There's also other cards that kind of interrupt that as well. But the first part of that skill is pretty important because a lot of things in machining kind of rest themselves to gain additional skills. So act on Vanguard Circle. Once you've rested everything, boom, pop them all up, and then everybody stands, everybody gets power. It's just really good, really powerful columns. Like, you just create a hard situation for your opponent every single turn. It is a 3-attack deck, I will say that, but like I said, you drive check 3 times, you are getting a protect marker, very consistent overall, and this deck really has the ability to kind of bulk out and go the distance, I feel. Moving right along, this is an oldie but goldie. We are still running one of the Machining Spark Hercules. So Machining Spark Hercules is an awesome card. It did come out, I think, in the beginning of V-Series, but it still kind of holds up to this day in a sense. Like, its cost is a little outdated, but let's go over it. Act on Vanguard Circle once per turn. We counterblast 2, and then choose 5 of your rear guards and stand them. And they get an additional 5k until the end of turn, just like Machining Black Saturn. And then choose all of your opponent's units, rest them, and they get -5k until your opponent's next turn. So let's just pause on that really quick before I read the second part. -5k. One of them essentially is taking away a drive. One of them is taking away power. And you can go either way with this. The CB2 is heavy here. That's the only thing that I really kind of... I used to be running this at a 4 of or 3 of, whatever it was. I think the CB2 is just, it's a little tough sometimes. There's counter charging in this deck, but pretty expensive. But you're essentially saying, like, look, all of your shields get -5k, and then until the end of my opponent's next turn, if you don't re-ride, like, you're getting, you know, -5 again. So all my shields get that 5k buff in a way. So very effective, but again, the 2 is a little bit costly. In the second skill, act on Vanguard Circle once per turn, put a grade 2 or less rear guard from into your soul, and then this unit gets 5k until the end of turn for each of your opponent's rested rear guard. So if they went really wide, you basically put in a grade 2, and then on top of that, you get more power from this guy based on how many things were rested on their field. So, you know, I still think Machining Black Saturn is a little bit more stable, a little bit more consistent in that regard, so I kind of like that a bit more, but this is definitely a viable option to go into, especially if you're trying to just manipulate that power, and you know they can't re-ride, and it's a tough battle for them from there on out. Next up over here, probably the MVP of this deck, honestly. This is going to be Machining Meteor Bullet, so another grade 3. This deck definitely is grade 3 heavy, but it's not that bad in a way. I'll explain why afterwards, but this guy over here is a Vanguard, not a Vanguard. This is something you want to basically call onto Rearguard Circle. This guy continues on Van or Rearguard Circle. If you have 5 or more rear guards, all of your rear guards with machining in their name get boost. So again, full field, really easy to do in this deck. This deck spams out, as you'll see a little bit later, and then everybody gets boost. On top of that, act on Vanguard Circle once per turn, rest another rear guard with machining in its card name. This guy gets 10k until the end of turn, so you're boosting with this an extra 10k, 22k booster potentially. Anything you want on the field becomes a booster. This is like such a good card. You want to kind of have 2, I would say 2 to 3, 2 if you're going to have his skill kind of go off, 3 possibly, but I mean, the more of these guys the merrier. It really is such a good card. Gaining power, just consistency. You stand up anyway based on both of their Vanguard skills, so it's really not a big deal to be resting things, and I think overall this is what really makes the deck flow, in my opinion. So definitely a big fan of that. Next up over here, you can swap one of these for, I forgot what the card's name was off the top of my head, and I think I will be swapping it. I just don't have it on hand right now, but I'm running 2 Machining Centipedes at the moment. Machining Centipedes, I'll explain the other card in just a moment, but Machining Centipede on Van or Rearguard Circle, counterblast 1, choose the same number of your opponent's units as the number of your rested rearguards. Until the end of next turn, they lose Twin Drive, Intercept, Boost, and cannot gain those skills, and then we stand this unit. So that is just huge. Your opponent, if they cannot reride, they lose Twin Drive. Like, you know, very rarely does a Vanguard now have triple drive or something like that, and I guess it doesn't list triple drive on here, so it doesn't get it, but I think seeing one of these per game is absolutely fine. Like, this is going to be taking away your opponent's Vanguard's drive check, so if you're not on the Black Saturn and subtracting it, you know, with Hercules over here, you can then just at least limit that and make sure that not only are they 8k, but they don't have the ability to go over and hit your Vanguard based on a drive check. So really good synergy there. I really like these cards. This guy is such an annoying card. My opponents hate it when I pop that down. Again, I'll flash on the screen the other card that you could kind of swap this with. I believe that one just kind of gives you power to other rear guards, including itself. I think it's all standing rear guard, something like that, but I think that's the one I wanted to try, and it is machining in its name. Everything so far has machining in its name, and that is important. Just take note, because there are cards that kind of, you know, use that kind of skill and need that language to kind of cooperate. But lastly, in the grade 3s, I'm going to be talking about machining Stag Beetle, so still a really good play with Hercules. If you need to ride this isn't the worst backup ride. Typically, I don't misride in this deck, but auto on Van or Rearguard Circle when placed from hand, we call up to 2 cards from our soul to rearguard as rest, and then if this unit was placed on Vanguard Circle, this unit gets the original attack of all the units called with this effect until the end of turn. So on the Vanguard Circle thing, like I said, not the worst reride, but at the same time too, there are cards that we don't really want to ride in grade 2, and we want to have them on Rearguard Circle. So if we have to ride that, because we are a little bit thinner on grade 2s in here, we could pop this guy down, pop out those really valuable grade 2s, and then go from there. Everything just chains, everything kind of supports itself out, and again, when you're placed on Rearguard Circle, you still do that. So it doesn't matter if it's rested, because obviously our regular Vanguards are going to stand everything up. So good card. I think at 1 of now, it's absolutely fine, and I'm just teching it in at that ratio. Next up over here, going over to the grade 2s, like we kind of mentioned, we are talking about 4 of Machining Mantis. So this card has been reprinted a bunch of times, thankfully, so it was really expensive at one point. But Counterblast, one place on Van or Rearguard Circle, Counterblast 1, look at 6 cards on the top of your deck, reveal a grade 3 from among them, put them into your hand, shuffle your deck, and this guy gets 6k. So 6k is the magic number for grade 2s in Megacolony. I don't know why, really, but I think that they just have really decent rearguard columns. This card is good for early game. It's good for, you know, pressuring on Rearguard Circle. Either one of them really activates that Van or Rearguard Circle, activates the skill, so you can just go and find the right grade 3. It's really easy to find grade 3s in this deck. I feel like even without the top 5 grade 3 searcher, you still always ride the correct one. So big fan of this, and 15, like I said, is kind of the magic number, and we kind of see that with one of the other cards over here as well. But moving along, another machining card right here, we're going to be talking about machining Scatterhorn. So Scatterhorn is one of the more it's a newer card. I think it came out, what is it, VBT 10? What was that? I think Redora came out in that one. I'm not 100% sure, but this guy's skill, auto on Van or Rearguard Circle when placed from hand, look at 6 cards on the top of your deck, reveal up to 1 non-grade 2 card with machining in its card name from among them, put it into your hand and shuffle your deck. If a card was put into your hand, put a card from your hand into your soul, because we do have actually a lot of soul blasts, and it does kind of pay for its own cost, especially with machining Black Saturn now. I find that you are soul blasting a little bit more than we were previously, so good to actually put a card from your hand into that soul. Can give yourself a little bit more and just filter for the right card that you're really looking for. And again, machining Stag Beetle can pull out cards from your soul to rearguard, so good synergy with that there. Its second skill, act on Van or Rearguard Circle. Once returned soul blast, rest of rearguard with machining in its card name, choose one of your opponent's rearguards, and that unit cannot be stood during your next opponent's next stand phase. So again, really annoying. Stun bugs, stunning your opponent, making sure that they're units that typically get value off of just don't become valuable. You know, they're just dead husks on the field, really. Not in the sense that maybe a cradle marker makes them, but at the same time, it's tough. If you don't have something to stand in V series, there's not a lot of things outside of like Nova Grappler or something like that restand. So I get it. You know, decks spam call out, Gold Paladin, things of that nature. Obviously has a leg up on this deck, but I mean, there are a ton of force decks, a lot of protect decks that cannot get around this, and Excel, I don't know if it's like as strong right now in the meta. I think generally it's still pretty good, but I think we're seeing a lot of force decks right now, so yeah, very effective against that, and again, a good ride target. And then lastly over here, this is one of the cards you can kind of call out with machining Stag Beetle, a new card out of the new set. This is going to be machining Armor Beetle. So Armor Beetle is actually a really good card, and it's good. I feel like we have good tempo now in the early game. This guy's skill, act on rearguard circle once per turn, rest one of your other rearguards, choose one of your opponent's rearguards, and rest it. And then until the end of that unit cannot stand during the next stand phase, this guy gets 6k. So again, that 15k magic number because it's a 9k base. So really nice on-hit pressure, you know, assuming your opponent didn't hit a trigger. Even if they did, you kind of boost this guy, it's fine. And then it continues on rearguard circle. If this unit is rested, all of your opponent's rearguards in the same column lose intercept, boost, and cannot gain those skills. So pretty big, especially if you're going against the Protect 2 kind of clan. Not many decks really run that, but still worth noting. You just can't intercept with it, and you're making really big numbers in this deck. It's hard sometimes. Sometimes they do have to rely off that intercept, so I personally like this card. I think it's good at a 2 of. I think you see it often enough. You don't really want to ride it because it doesn't have that Vanguard ability, and there's so much searching in this deck that I think at a 2 of it's absolutely fine. The other cards bring a little bit more value, I think, to the table, but I do really like this card. I actually do like it because it stuns them. You can't stand that, especially if they rushed you down early. You could pop this guy down and still have something kind of, you know, preventing them from really going off next turn. Next up over here, getting into the grade 1s, we are looking at an oldie but goldie. Again, this is Machining Hornet. So this is probably the most expensive card, if I had to guess, in the deck. I think this might be a couple dollars, but aside from that, I think everything else is pretty cheap now. This guy's skill, when its attack, or the attack it boosted hits, we essentially get to hits a Vanguard. We look at 6 cards from the top of our deck, reveal up to 1 grade 3 from among them, put it into our hand, and then shuffle our deck. If we put it into our hand, and this unit is on rearguard circle, we put it into Soul. So again, fueling our Soul Blast cost, which is pretty decent overall, and a lot of times that is enough threat to just make your opponent kind of guard a little preemptively. They just don't want you to do that search. A lot of people just have this tendency of blocking everything that says on hit, so I think it is actually a good card. I still like these over the grade 3 searchers, the typical generic ones, you know, the call down, top 5, that guy. I think this digs a little bit deeper, has that on hit pressure, still has the machining name, so definitely like searchable too in a way, and I'll show you how. Over here too, we have a lot of skills with counterblasts overall, especially for our Vanguard. We have to make sure that's like live every single turn, especially if you're going into Hercules, so you can cut this down if you want. It's definitely not necessary at 4 of, but I kind of like it at this ratio. This is going to be 4 of machining Lady Bomber, so again, has that machining name, just really nice consistency in that regard. And then auto on rearguard circle, 1 place, Soul Blast 1, rest this unit, choose any number of fighters, rearguards, rest them, and your opponent has 3 or less rearguards, you countercharge 1. So resting them is no big deal because we stand them up in this deck, and then we then get to countercharge if our opponent is 3 or less. So little built-in countercharge. You can go with the machining Mantis. What was it? Not machining Mantis. What was it? I forgot the name of it was the promo card for so long for Megacolony that was stupid expensive. I think it's something Centipede, but you can go with that over this, but I just like the machining name personally, and I think it really just synergizes well with the deck. This guy over here next up is going to be 4 of something that actually did get reprinted, and this is all blinged out now. I actually really like this card in this foil. This is machining Scibister, and I think this card is not slept on, but definitely helps to the consistency of the deck that people just really don't realize sometimes. So this guy's skill, auto on rearguard circle. When this unit is rested by your card's ability, look at 3 cards on the top of your deck, call 1 card with machining in its card name from among them to rearguard circle, and put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. This ability may only be used with the card name, the same name, once per turn, so you can't spam this guy, because I feel like that would not be unfair, but just a little bit too much of a plus. But you can actually look at the top 3 and call over. So you rested this guy, call him over, rest something else or somebody else's skills, stand them up with your Vanguard. It's actually like really easy synergy overall, and this guy just really helps you thin the deck, make sure that you're looking for the right units, pop them down. Can really come in clutch. I know it's only a top 3, but even still, calling that down is actually pretty good. And then lastly, best starter in the game, obviously, machining Worker Ant. So that is pretty much the main deck over here. Let me know if you guys have any questions down in the comments below. We have the triggers coming up right over here. We are going to be looking at 4 of the Heal Guardians. They're not expensive for this clan, just really not. And if you are new to this game, essentially if you have not ridden a grade 3, you pop this guy down, gives your Vanguard a permanent plus 10k for the rest of the turn. And don't forget too, it keeps the shield value, so it's 15 plus the 10. So in this deck, that becomes a 34k column on your Vanguard circle when you drop this. And then next up, like, you know, let's say they have a bunch of spammy attacks, your Vanguard retains that 10k. So very effective in this. We don't want to get blitzed out early, and I think the Heal Guardians really help us kind of maintain that. Next up over here too, I think these are pretty cheap as well. These are the Draw Sentinels. These are just, you know, perfect cards. I feel like drawing in this deck, we have just enough power to kind of like I don't think we need extra draw because we do cycle through. We do have our extra drive checks with our Vanguard, and I think that the searching power in this deck is good enough where we don't necessarily need more draw. So just 4 and then 8 crit overall total. So putting on the appropriate amount of pressure, just pretty vanilla triggers, to be honest, nothing really crazy here, but try this deck, let me know what you think. I think it's actually a really, really good value. Again, you could probably put this together for around that $30 mark if I had to guess. I don't think there's a couple other decks maybe that are like kind of around that, but this just feels so good. This feels flushed out. This is not like some budget jank deck put together that's just like random stuff that somehow like you hope it works. Like everything does work, everything has a purpose, and this is like I said, a fully flushed out archetype. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys are new to the channel, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button. If you like the video, possibly subscribe, possibly leave a like on the video as well, much appreciated. And if you guys have any questions, like I said, let me know down below. This is Alex from Team Generations signing out.